It's another wonderful Thursday in the beautiful U.S. of A., specifically in Texas, which is the best state in the union, of course. Um, I'm Alexander Keaton. I'm here with as always, with my Rio Nick Bradshaw. How you doing, Nick?
Oh, I'm hanging in there. I'm hanging in there. I think we got a lot to talk about. Lots to talk about.
We do. So let me start off this whole episode by saying this. I genuinely believe Trump is going to win. I don't know that it's going to be tomorrow. I don't think it's going to be next week. I think that there is a lot of corruption that's being exposed. I think at the end of it, Trump wins. I do. How he does it, it may. There's a dozen different ways this could turn out. That's not really my thing. I'm just saying I think he is going to win. But all that being said, it's not like I'm not. It's not like I'm not looking at the numbers and being, getting a little disheartened by it. Right? I mean, 22 million Christians didn't go and vote. Imagine if 22 million Christians had voted over the last few weeks, and on election day, they couldn't cheat enough to steal it. So, if that's indeed what's happening, of course, that's what's alleged. But it's close, it's tight. There's these regularities. Nick, can you talk me off the ledge here?
Sure, I can try. What's funny? I'm in a different position than you are. I don't know if the president walks this one across the finish line, and yet I'm okay either way because I'm trying to look at some other numbers that are actual hard facts that are coming in. And for me personally, look, I've had a lot of people reaching out. It's been wonderful to hear from them, but it's also people kind of calling in a panic. And I was on the phone last night until I don't know 1 something in the morning, and just kind of being that I have absolutely zero qualifications for mental health, for counseling or anything of the such. Very blessed to have many friends that are very capable, but I am not. But for me, what works are facts. That's what helps get me from A to B. So a couple things that came up that I think we need to recognize and discover. The first piece here, I think, which is one of the most important, and it's absolutely fantastic, is that the misnomer that the Republican Party is not the place for strong women was just eviscerated two nights ago. Our very strong ladies in the House of Representatives just crushed it. Look, they're on track to double their percentage in the Republican Party of number of women. I mean, the freshman class, it's the highest number of GOP women in a freshman class. Before this, I believe, was 9. And as it stands now, the potential is as many as 33 women could be in their conference. This would be huge. So well done, ladies. Republicans expanded their control of governorships in state houses. As we all know, we get really hung on the president. I think that's because naturally people look to having one person in charge. It's a natural thing, whether it's a king or a pope or a leader or whatever it is, they look to that one entity. We need to realize that our country is set up as the United States of America. We are governed by 50 governors. There are only 50 governors. There are twice as many senators as there are governors. And people sometimes look at the Senate as the upper chamber. There are 435 members of Congress. I think we are really underestimating the power and influence that governors have, and the Republicans expanded their numbers as well. This plays a role because with state houses, with legislatures coming together, that will play a role in certain things like the districting of states and what will be going on for drawing those official lines. So that's a very, very big, impactful thing. And we're talking years and years and years. These are impactful for quite a while. It looks like they're going to hold the Senate. Now, I know things are getting really tight in Georgia. They may go to a runoff, but I still think overall you win. I think there overall you win. They had like 15 people running in this race, and once it's down to 2, you kind of see where it goes. I think the Republicans are going to be okay, and I think they will hold the Senate. Hopefully, David Perdue will actually pull off against John Ossoff this time, but it looks like you hold the Senate. You hold the Senate, you can slow things down from the House, and you can also utilize that personnel management, right? So you're not going to be pushing crazy people and judges and whatnot. You've got the ability to slow things down. And with McConnell in the seat, hopefully, you've got the capability to get rid of all these crazy ideas, blowing up the Supreme Court, blowing up the Senate, getting rid of the filibuster, adding states, all these things. And you could see, if you want to see what happened to that, you could see the economy responding. The market, seeing that those things are not going to be implemented, is up over 1,000 points or at 1,000 points in the last 2 days. I'm old enough to remember the phrase, the market doesn't like instability, but it's looking at this beyond the president. It's looking at the policies, because you can't undo those policies without the Senate. So
yeah.
We are already sitting. The Republicans already picked up 5 seats in the House. They could potentially pick up as many as, I've heard, as many as 13. You've got to ask yourself, what does that do? Again, what are the long-term ramifications? I think if Trump doesn't win, you're going to have people, whether it's logistically and verifiably true or not, that are going to say this was stolen. And there will be enough that I think you'll get a ground root swelling like you did with the Tea Party, where the Tea Party took something like 63 seats, I think in that midterm. They also say that the incoming party usually loses seats. The Democrats, now they had a 23-seat advantage, I believe. They're now down to about 18. If the Republicans pick up another 5-10 seats, obviously those numbers go down and are very manageable. You end up with a presidency where you've got conservatives at the helm, both in the Supreme Court, both houses of Congress. Not a lot of places you can go. As President Obama once said, as long as he has a phone and a pen, he can govern. You really can't, because you can have judges that can serve injunctions and shut things down. Hope to apply that term properly, but that's what we're looking at. Another thing is, if Biden comes in potentially and doesn't have the Senate, I believe that he will be. I think that's the first time for a president not to have either both houses or at least the Senate since somewhere in the mid 19th century.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. That's a really big deal. And I think a couple things real quickly, kind of just tailoring off, and I appreciate our fans listening to me, bloviate this long. I think we also expose that polling is just disastrous. I mean, literally, I think they're just 9-year-olds playing darts in the back, and they're like, Connecticut plus 14, like that. We have to redesign that model because it's not working. So social scientists are probably looking at a lot of their statistics courses in graduate schools and thinking, might want to come about this from a different approach. The other thing I'm seeing that's very, very fascinating is we're looking at prominent Democrats now. I heard a comment, saw a headline, someone said, Joe Biden's not going to go to war with the Republicans. Joe Biden's going to have to fend off a war from the Democrats, and specifically from the hard left, the progressives. There are people coming out. One in particular, a Democrat representative, Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger. She's out of Virginia, and as it goes, evidently they were having a conference call, and after this, because it looks, I believe, at this point that the Democrats have not picked up any. They didn't flip anything. And evidently, as the story goes, she was on the phone just blasting people about, if you ever use the phrase defund the police or socialism ever again, then you reap what you sow. To never ever use that again. And I think what also happened, and I'm going to end on this, what also happened was that the country repudiated what they saw as coming as to these extreme policies. And I think that just sets people up. All I can see right now is 2010, when the Tea Party came in, and all I can see for 2022 is people coming in and saying, okay, you're going to throw this on us, especially if Trump doesn't win and they feel like that was stolen. I think they're going to come out with a vengeance. If we can effectively create leaders that have a cohesive and effective message. So I know a lot of people, the stuff we're talking about, state houses and legislatures and governorships, it's not sexy. It's not going to lead with breaking news coverage on your channels, but it is the nuts and bolts of our government, and it is the part that matters. Our government, I'm ripping you off, Alex, our government was designed to be the most personal, the most local, and at the lowest level at all times, to not be centralized. So, I'm seeing I think we planted a lot of good seeds. We may have some flowers that some of the petals are going to fall off, but we've got some really good seeds planted. Hashtag Nikki Haley, Dan Crenshaw, 2024. I'm calling it now on the show right now. Haley Crenshaw, 2024.
Haley Crenshaw. Well, I think they would appreciate that. So let me ask it this way. What you're saying is that even if Trump doesn't make it across the finish line, what he's done, because one of the things you didn't mention, we were talking about the women. We also saw a lot more minorities breaking for Republicans. Not 30 or 40%, say, of African Americans, but like of African American males, I think it was like 14, 15%. For females, I think it doubled. It went from like 3 or 4 to 7 or 8%. Hispanics also, we gained there as well. So it's still, there's a lot of work to do, but there's definitely movement in the minority community as well. So what we're looking at is a more powerful Republican Party, a more diverse party, a party where it's and one of the things that has actually, I think, hindered our ability to be diverse was the fact that to be a minority and to be a Republican was to be ostracized. And it seems like there's a lot more people who are like, I don't care anymore. Right? I want to do the right thing. I want to fight for the right thing. And it's also that the Republican Party, I think we also need to make one more designation here. It's no longer the party of conservatism per se. It's the party of the right. And the problem is the Democrats have gone so far to the left that traditional liberals, like Kennedy-style liberals, are now on the right. Like they've moved the Overton window so much that people who were liberals just a few years ago are now looking at this saying, "Whoa, what's going on?" Now, I will say this: a lot more liberals because because of the internet, we're able to talk more. We're able to make a more. It's easier to sort of make the argument. A lot of liberals have changed a few positions as well to be more on the right. So the new Republican Party is more the party of the right than is just the conservatives. So that's also another big change. But what it's done is it's giving us, like you said, this is more about strategic victories, right? Again, let's forget about Trump for 2 seconds, and really for the rest of the episode, because that'll work its way out one way or the other. I think no matter what happens, our fundamental strategy doesn't change, right? Whether Trump is elected or not, even if he is elected, he's got 4 more years and then it's over. We have to think longer term. We have to think 30 years down the road. We need to not lie on our laurels. My fear, so here's my thing. Like, my fear is if Trump were to win, people would be like, okay, everything's groovy. I need to go back to sleep and not care about these things. That's almost the fear that I have. And it's like, but if he doesn't win, then I think a lot more people, like you're right, they're going to wake up and be like, hey, this was stolen from us. We got to earn this back. But I think that either way, the point is we are now properly positioned to make this kind of a fight, to make this kind of a stand with the victories that we've made. Is that what I'm hearing from you?
Yeah. I mean, again, it's whether it's in 3 months or 4 years in 3 months, people have seen, you've peeked behind the curtain, to borrow the phrase, right? And you've gotten a different look at it. If nothing else, what a beautiful thing to see the level of engagement. Somebody made a comment, that however many of them are real, I'm going to leave it out there. I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist, but I'll say it this way. This election has now crowned 2 people. Joe Biden is the most heavily elected or heavily voted for in terms of sheer number Democrat in history, and Donald Trump the same for the Republicans. That's engagement. Now, you can pose the harder question and dig a little deeper. Okay, well, how many of those votes for Biden are actually legitimate? The numbers were going to be higher for him because of California. But the question is, can you get there? Can you make it happen? This is nowhere near over. It just isn't. No. Again, this show not taking a position from a political side, but rather from the models and the operating side of how these things work. Looking at whose hands are on the levers here. I think that you're going to start to see. We talked about it earlier today, we said that I happen to believe that at the end of the day, you're going to see within the Democrat Party, this is going to be this is a textbook definition of internecine warfare. I mean, this is literally assured mutual destruction, or so it's being posed. That I think the progressive left is going to come after wherever the moderates may be. I don't know where their representation is. But I will also say that I think the moderates are going to go after the left and say it was your crazy ideas that you were pushing out so loudly that did this. Look, I'm telling you, 2022 is not far off. I know 2020 has seemed like it's been either 15 minutes or 3,000 years at the same time for all of us. 2022 is not that far off. And if you don't think that some people are already starting their campaigns for 2 years from now, we're lying to ourselves. And we're going to see what happens. And I think that the Democrats were brilliant in their marketing strategy when they started to talk about, the blue wave. 5 minutes after the president was inaugurated, everything was the blue wave.
Right.
And I think that if we can get the messaging out there, for there to be counterpoints to those ideas, to have better ideas, as we've said on this show, you defeat bad ideas with better ideas. I think that that's where we need to go as a country. And I think it's important that we go there as a country. And that we inspire and bring people. Look, I've said it before. I think Donald Trump is a very highly effective executive and an effective manager. I think the term leader is something that it possesses a wholly different skill set, and is a metric that I would be very protected to give. I also don't think that you necessarily just look at a position and say someone's a leader. I've had the honor of working with people in many different positions and posts that have had wonderful leadership abilities, and their age, seniority, position, intellect, education. Sure, these are factors that may support or contribute, but you don't just say, "Oh, that guy's a senator. Oh, well, he's a natural leader." I disagree. Leadership is something that is earned, it's discovered, it's built. It's yes, I think there are some natural elements, but I mean, it has to be cultivated. So, short answer, yes, I think that we are building the foundations for future leaders, hopefully in this party, to do things. You said it before about the Overton window, but more so just to say, as the pendulum swings, it went so far to the left that many people that tried to maintain somewhat of a single moderate central lane, got thrown off. Got put. I mean, it happened to me. I had a friend ask me, like, why does it appear like you went from looking at the perspective from one side to another? And I said, because the other side doesn't want me anymore.
Right.
I mean, not only do I not belong, they don't want me anymore. And I can't vote against my own best interest. I mean, that's and I don't mean like, okay, I'll vote for this tax hike because it'll help the community. I'm talking about like, you're fundamentally saying things that I disagree with on a spiritual, personal, professional, emotional level, that I find fundamentally and in terms of a value-driven decision, incorrect, inaccurate, invalid, and wrong.
A lot of people feel that way. And this is not new, right? This has been going on for a very, very long time. Let's go back to when Al Gore ran for president against Bush the first time. It was I just forgot his name. His vice president who was that going to be?
We're talking about President Bush?
I'm sorry, what? You broke up there.
Are you speaking about President Bush's vice president?
No. When Al Gore ran against Bush the first time, it was Joe Lieberman. Yeah, Joe Lieberman. Joe Lieberman was his vice president. So, but then after that election, it wasn't very long before Joe Lieberman basically was kicked out of the party.
Right.
It's like he was your vice presidential candidate just a few, literally 2 years earlier, and then they kicked him out. And this has been going on for a very long time, where there are a lot of Democrats and liberals. I think the problem is the old school Kennedy liberal, right, is people who maybe don't have the same social leanings as, say, Christian conservatives. But they do want free speech. They do want a functional economy. They just may be more okay with a larger welfare state than say conservatives are. But the fundamental concept of freedom of speech, freedom of religion, the ability to have a functional economy, that's something that they believe in. And
Well,
so a lot of people just got kicked out because, again, they swung so far that way, towards this radical Marxist view of the world.
yeah, I mean, I think that, and excuse me, Alex, I think that, a lot of your Kennedy Democrats are your very, very soft to moderate Republicans now. They in some ways, not all, and I want to align all of them there. But I mean, I think that, even the personification, Kennedy was strong on the Cold War. I mean, for crying out loud, his brother when he was younger was one of the Red Hunters, right? And so,
Right.
you've got a perspective to look at these things. But he was also a Catholic. I mean, and now you saw the way they were going after Catholics. I mean, in particular, Kamala Harris going after Justice Barrett. And we've talked about it on the show before. The fear, the risk, the danger that people have when they look at this is that Joe Biden is not who's going to be president. And so we don't know who we're putting there as president. And that's the danger that people talk about. Because this feeling is, well, we just need to do anything to change it. Well, sometimes doing something, well, we've got to just do anything. Sometimes doing nothing is doing something. And I'm not saying nothing. I'm simply saying you just don't randomly gun deck something and just say you're going to go do it. What I think you do in this situation is, let the process run its course. If there's fraud, it will be discovered. And I believe that. I genuinely believe that. And again, you've got a president in the White House who is not going to concede until, they literally call every voter's second grade math teacher and ask what kind of person they were. I mean, it's right. So this feeling like, and I'll say it like this. I don't even care when they come out and make these predictions and like Georgia did this and Pennsylvania did that. Irrelevant. This is going to be challenged at every level and most likely end up in the Supreme Court in one capacity or another. And so, the night of the election, I was like, "Whoa, it's looking good. I feel good. He's up 15 points in Pennsylvania, and we're going to figure this out. We'll see what happens." Mostly because I wanted the preservation of our union. I'm infinitely more concerned about the welfare of the institutional pillars of our country and our society, of that which we believe. I'll be honest. I think having a little conflict is good. Having a discordant government and discordant houses of the legislature can be a good thing. It forces compromise. I'm not against that. I think that's a good thing. But this concept of the majority in all things rules, that wipes out the minority, and you can't do that because sometimes some of the best ideas come from the other side. So again, let it run its course. But again, I don't care if Biden gets to 300 electoral. It doesn't matter. These are if you find it in one place, you can make the assumption, which is dangerous, but you can make the assumption that it's happened in all. Right? So then you go and you look for it. And that's why there's multiple lawsuits, and they're following the path. They're going to file the suits, they're going to provide this information, and they're going to try to hear it all the way up to the Supreme Court. Okay. So we'll see what happens. Will it get there? I don't know. I think so, but we'll see what happens.
No, we will. And regardless, I think the what we're seeing here is there needs to be a new pathway forward, which is a stronger, more active citizenry. I think this is really the key thing here is we can't rest on our laurels regardless of what happens, whether Trump wins or loses. We can't lose the momentum. We as individuals have to go. We have to be advocates. We have to do what the left has been doing for 50 years, which is advocate for our positions, argue for our positions. And now we've been shown that, you don't have, like we've been told my entire life, you have to moderate your position. You can't just sit there and tell someone why the Republican position is better. You have to moderate it because they won't necessarily listen. No, Trump just stood there and said, "Here's why everything's better," and it worked. We need to testicular up here and go do the hard work of arguing for this and making and legitimately making people's lives better by helping them, by really going out of our way to do the things that we're supposed to be doing as just good people, right? I think the thing that has bothered me more than anything else as this whole process has gone on is sort of that subtle realization that as we've been going on, a question I keep asking is, do they do? Obviously, there's the grassroots level, but the people up at the top, do they, on the Democrat side, are they? Do they really believe with this, or are they simply manipulating people with this language, with this ideology, to do certain things because it is so obvious that it's dangerous and destructive to the people they're claiming to help? And I find it unconscionable that someone can look at the damage done to these inner cities, to some of these great cities, right? Forget, even if we were to put aside the minority community for just a moment, just look at what they've done to these cities. And then you compound that with what's happened to the minority communities. This is all like the problem is corruption and incompetence are often identical. Like it's hard to tell which one is which. And either way, whether it's because of incompetence or corruption, we as those of us, whether you're conservative or if you're traditionally liberal, but you're now on the new right, we have an obligation to go out there and really start advocating for our positions so we can fix a lot of what has been so fundamentally broken that so many of our fellow citizens are in generational, hopeless poverty and violence, and it is intolerable. We can't just say, well, Trump was elected, we can go back to sleep, or Trump lost, we're going to go cry. No, we need to keep fighting. And even if the people who we're fighting for don't understand what we're saying, they will eventually if we keep going, if we actually go into the communities and fight for this and make the world and make our own communities a better place.
Agreed fully. Yeah. And again, keep it local, keep it personal, know your neighbors, participate in your school board, volunteer for your homeowners association, get involved. I mean, we've talked about knowledgeable citizenry since the beginning of this show, earlier this year. And that's where we are. It's a call to mental arms, we'll call it, right?
Yeah.
And being there. Again, I'll say this, minus any fraudulent activity, of course. I appreciate people engaging in their country, whether I disagree with their perspective or disagree even with the way that they're applying it, or maybe even disagree with the values that they think they're pursuing. I appreciate the concept of fighting for what you believe in and potentially participating in the government, the welfare of your country. We'll see. We'll see what happens. I don't think the ballot. I understand the argument for the ballots from a safety perspective, but I also realize how, again, this is me being completely old school and me being completely, not quite living in a shed in the middle of the woods in Montana, but being off the path that in my world, I would love to see it. Don't know how applicable it would be or how we'd be able to necessarily execute it, but you vote in person, and you've got one day. And that's it.
Right. I'm even okay with saying, look, let's do early voting to a point, but unless you are genuinely disabled, again, there are procedures by which we can do absentee ballots, but you vote in person, you vote with an ID, and that's it. Like that needs to be how we do things. I mean, just flat out, we're seeing. I'm sorry. This is the fact that we have entire states that can't count their votes. This is insane. There is no reason in the 21st century why we don't know everything already and know who voted, who they voted. And again, I don't want that information necessarily released, but what I'm saying is we should be able to say, hold up, are these people alive or dead? Did they register to vote? The fact that we can't do that, and I mean instantly, is insane. I know it's a big job, but this is something we should be able to do. This should not be this hard. It should not be this complicated. We should know by the end of the night, once everyone has voted, everyone should be able to take their information. We can bring it in. It can be tabulated and done the same night. There's just no cause for this kind of issue at all. Just
Right.
there isn't. And
Well,
the fact that
what
so
did you do?
again, I go back to the fact that there is, and look at what Florida. Florida was ready the same night. The fact of the matter is, in the 21st century, we're having this problem. Again, is it coincidence or is it corruption?
Well, I think there's a lot of questions about, this is also, tipping our hat to federalism, right? I mean, the states do have their authorities to do things, and I support that. And there are 50 different models potentially, that things are going on. So we'll see what happens. One of the things that was coming down that I thought was interesting is they were talking about the polling software that a lot of these places use, and how some of these places that were really way off, this software was disseminated throughout these different regions. So how far off was it? So like I said, if it's making its way out to the news already, that someone's saying, there's fraudulent activity or suspicious activity or unsuspecting activity or something going on in a region, imagine how many people are already looking into it. I mean, imagine what's going on in Michigan. I'll be honest, I have no concern if the president carries Michigan or not. That's not really where my investment is. My investment would be in a good man like John James. I think John James would do a great thing for the state of Michigan. I really think he would. I think he would reflect upon his community, his training. He's a fine man. He's a loving husband. He's a graduate of West Point. He's a successful business owner, military officer. Like he brings that presence to his community. I didn't even know who Gary Peters was until like 4 days ago. And
Right.
He wins because why? And it's that selfishness that I think that we need to examine and say, not towards Gary Peters, but towards the movement of, are we really doing the best that we can to help our people? And that would be a loss. John James would be a loss, a real loss for the state of Michigan.
Yeah.
So we have to keep, what do they say? Victory goes to those who believe in it the most, but also believe in it the longest. Thank you, Michael Bay's production of Pearl Harbor.
Right. Well, but it's enduring. Do we endure? Right. I mean, this is a fundamental thing. Laws are made by the people who show up. So the question is, do we show up and do we fight the longest and the hardest? If we genuinely believe what we think, we need to be doing this. Because the problem is, let's face it, these leftists, these Marxists, they've been fighting for a very long time, and they've been very good by saying, look, maybe we only got this much, but we have this much. Let's move another inch tomorrow.
Right.
We want to blow up the Death Star and go hang out with the Ewoks, right? It's like we think that's what victory is. That's not what victory looks like. Victory is every single inch.
I'm looking up the there's a wonderful quote, and I think it was Madison, I believe. I'll paraphrase it, but the gist of it was, he said, nothing has done more damage to liberty. No war, battle can do the kind of damage to liberty of incremental progressivism. And I don't think necessarily he was speaking of the way that it's being utilized today, but that concept, and I don't know that the conservative movement understands that as well. Because again, by a fundamental nature of pulling away from government, not going into government, but that mentality of, it may only be an inch a year, but after a lot of years, all those inches add up. Asian culture, China very much operates that way. They'll be like, oh, cool, we'll take a bad deal for 10 years. That's fine. Yeah. Because in 10 years, we're going to be in a different position. And they may just violate it anyway, like they did with Hong Kong. So
no, absolutely.
And you get what you tolerate. If you're willing to tolerate it, they'll do it. So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, aside from our own personal perspectives about Joe Biden, we've got to look at the international perspectives, and see that you're going to have, in my opinion, we need to wait and see potentially what happens with the election first before we even worry about who his cabinet's going to be. But you're going to see, right, in my opinion, a softer, weaker posture.
Oh, what we're going to see is a cabinet brought to us by China and Iran. And probably Russia too. So I mean, he's not picky about who he gets his cash from. But I
mean, he's not going to be there long. I mean,
so here's the thing. Honestly, I think it's not him. It's the people who are running him. He's a meat puppet at this point. it's whoever's behind him is going to be the one picking this cabinet. So who knows? But we'll see. Like I said, I'm still holding out. I still think I believe.
Stay the course.
Yeah, stay the course. Stay the course. I think Trump's got this. Let me phrase this. I think God has this. Either way, God has it. I still think Trump is going to win, but I think God has this, and we cannot possibly um, forget that. I think it's very easy for us to often forget that God is the one who has this whole thing in control. We often like to think that we do. We don't. This is God. He's the one in control. We need to accept that and realize that He does things for reasons. I happen to think that maybe one of the reasons that things are going the way they are, so we can actually see the corruption that we have had for so long. I mean, let's face it. A lot of people have ignored how corrupt our system has been for a very long time. We get to see it up front. This is a wake up call for everyone to really stand up and again become that informed citizenry. And we need to start making the arguments because I think there's we've talked about this before that those on the right, we're process oriented. We want to make sure the process is fair and equitable. Those on this extreme left, they don't care about the process, they care about the result. If you don't get the result you want, then the process is the issue. It's a systemic issue. For us, we want the system to be fair and neutral so that whoever wins wins, and we take wins and losses as information, right? If we lose, then we need to do better the next time. But we have the rules and they're obeyed. On the left, it's about the result. This is an opportunity and a call for us to learn from this, right? And get more engaged and not be asleep and to work for something bigger and higher than maybe what we were used to.
Yeah, I mean, I think that in our time right now, it's funny if you think about it, one of the hardest things to do is to be still. We are so inundated with access to media and access to outlets of entertainment and access to other people. You can text or call or Facebook or tweet or Snapchat almost anybody all the time. I think sometimes what we have to work on is what I have to work on. I won't speak for others. What I have to work on is finding that time to be still.
Yeah.
And we talk about that. You mentioned faith. Be still and know that I am God. Like He's got it, but it's scary. So when I talk to people that I love very much, and you can hear the anxiety and fear in their voice. How dare we have let politics become this for us?
Well, it goes back to the premise of the entire program, right? Not playing politics. We've allowed politics to become a game. It's that politics is simply the tool that we're supposed to use to build the house that we all live in as a society. But instead, we've made it a game. It's who's up, who's down. But the problem is we've done it for so long. The people who understood the stakes the best, they're the ones who've made the inroads. We can talk about the leftists all day long, but the one thing you have to give them is credit for understanding what the stakes really were. They've known this, what this was all about the entire time. We're the ones who didn't. We're the ones who took it for granted. And so we need to, again, as we become more involved, actually involved, I think the American people want results. And once we start, because here's the thing, again, like I've said a dozen times, we're still arguing about the same problems. We still have the same situation we had 20, 30, 40 years ago. We've spent trillions of dollars in our roads are no more improved than they were 20, 30, 40 years ago. We have an entire system dedicated to having a problem that's supposed to be fixed and them not fixing it, so that we would vote for them so they can keep fixing it. It's time for us, the American people, to actually wake up and do it ourselves. And that's what politics is supposed to be.
Doing other people's jobs.
Well, no, that's it. I mean, politics is supposed to be us, the people, saying, hey, you people that we're electing, this is what we want you to do. Go do it and get it fixed. And here's what we think is the best way to do that.
Yeah, right? But I don't think it's about us standing. I was teasing before, clearly, but
oh yeah,
the problem is that I think we've had to now have so much oversight on them and so much engagement, so much of the time for it to chew up all of this, because I think that we have seen what happens when people go there for special interest, and lobbyists get their hooks in them, and corporations and billionaires and people with agendas get their way with them. I mean, it's we'll see, but you would hope that you would have statesmen and representatives and people that possess the capability, qualification, and moral fortitude to be able to go and execute their duties honorably, such that you didn't have to sit there and turn their job as a congressional seat into a money laundering service.
Yeah, that would be nice to stop that. But you know what? I think that's a topic for maybe another episode. Hopefully next week we will have we can discuss about who our new president is. Although I'm not holding my breath.
You really think that's going to happen?
I'm not. Oh no, I'm not holding my breath.
Okay.
Yeah. So again, I have no special insight. This is just me talking. I wouldn't be surprised if this got into December.
Well,
don't get me wrong. I'd love for this to be done by the time we come back together next week. I just don't think it's going to be.
Bush v. Gore took 37 days, and that was one state.
Well, the thing about Bush v. Gore, though, and this is, I think it is entirely possible that this gets done faster. Bush v. Gore was about counting; it was a mechanical thing. What's happening now is far more about corruption of the system. So I can see that taking way longer, but I could also see it happening much faster because it's like, look, here's all these fraudulent ballots. Here's all these dead people. Here's all these ballots that aren't named. Right? It's like, here's all the stuff that came in 158 days after the election. Like, it's going to be, it can either go way long or it could be much shorter. So again, my thought is we're going to come back next week and we're going to talk about French fries and comic books or something, because we're not going to have a president to talk about.
Well, I just don't like to see the country being drugged through this, because I feel like just as a nation, we are just all exhausted.
But maybe we need to be. From
COVID, from all of it. It's just the level of exhaustion I think many of us feel just from just being present. I mean, like I said, that search for stillness. We're going to come out of COVID, and the enrollment in Buddhist temples across the country is going to go up 4,200%.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, but here's the thing, right? Maybe we need to be, because here's the problem. If we'd done the hard work incrementally years ago, if we'd been present, if we'd been doing the things we were supposed to be doing, we wouldn't be in this situation in the first place. Like a drug addict, that sometimes you have to hit rock bottom. Societies are no different. Societally, I'm hoping this is our rock bottom, so we can start working our way out of this hole. But again, I'm also not holding my breath on that either. But we're just gonna keep doing what we do, and let's see what happens. And when we come back together in another 6 days.
Absolutely.
All right. Nick, it's been great to both of our listeners. We appreciate having you. And
thanks, Mom.
Yeah, exactly. Let's keep praying. Let's keep praying. Let's keep hoping. Let's let the people do it. Let's keep the faith, and let's just keep moving forward. Right, as Dory says, let's just keep swimming.
Absolutely. Peace and light, everybody. Be safe.